Hey, what's good, people, man? Platinum Bearded Dread, yeah, man. Offering up tips on how to navigate through this thing called life. Tales upon the bike, then. You dig it? Has it ever occurred to you, yeah, that maybe, just maybe, we've been lied to about who God is and what God looks like, and even if He exists? Now, before you switch off in horror and disgust and start swearing and blaspheming, blasphemous, all that stuff, I want you to let me land, let me finish, man. Most of what we understand God to be, for the most of us, is based on what religion has taught us, right? Whether that's Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, the three main ones. But the thing is, how are we so sure we've got the right meaning or understanding of those books? Especially when you consider that those particular books, the Bible and the Quran, have a lot of the text is allegorical or metaphorical. In other words, oh man, flies are gone. In other words, not literal. Case in point, yeah. Thank you. Case in point, yeah. The Bible talks about Jonah being in the belly of a big fish for 3 days. Now, was he literally in the belly of a fish? And the Quran talks about God, Allah, being firmly seated on His throne. Now again, are we talking about a God sitting on His throne like the boss, you know, looking down and everything? How are we to know what is literal and what is symbolic or metaphorical? And that can, that can basically colour, if you like, our whole perception of who we take God to be. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone's belief system, but let's go further, yeah? Suppose I ask you, I want you to think of a banana. Think of a banana. Just get a picture of a banana in your head. Can you see it? Yeah, yellow, curved a little bit. You get it, right? You see it? Good. Now think of a tomato. Can you see it? Good stuff. Red or whatever. The green, roundish. You can see it, right? Now think of a calf. You can see that, right? Good stuff. Now think of bringing an image to your mind of God. I'm waiting, man. Alright, listen, I'm not trying to be controversial or anything like that, but I would guess basically that the majority of people, when asked to bring an image of God to them, to their mind, drew a blank. Yeah, drew a blank. You know, there was no concrete image, but just blank. Not even, I mean, bring anything, hot air, oxygen, whatever the case may be, but nothing tangible, right? Now, don't you think it's very strange and odd that we can think of a car, you know, a trivial thing like a car, pencil, banana, we can bring that to mind, to our thoughts, a picture of it at any time. But when it comes to something as important as, and the most important thing as God, we draw a blank. Now, me personally, I think that's very strange. And it's funny because if you ask young people, children, so let's say young children, very young children, what does God look like? What do you see when you see God? They'll say a person. Now, maybe they're onto something. Again, bear with me, yeah? Don't switch off just yet. But the thing is, what we have to bear in mind is that whenever we see a person showing greatness, great qualities, whether that be achievement or qualities like kindness, compassion, all them things, patience, caring, we usually see that exhibited through a human being, right? And whenever we describe God, or even read about God, he's always usually described in human-like characteristics, God the caring, the merciful, etc. Now, why do I say that children might be onto something? Because what children have displayed, if you like, in their answer is one unappreciated truth, which is that we can only relate to things that we have an understanding of. We can only relate to something that we've already had a relationship with. There's nothing that you can bring to mind outside of, even in your dreams, there's nothing that you can bring to mind that you haven't seen before in one form or another. Even if I say to you, think of a flying pig, you can actually do that because you've seen a pig before, you know what a pig looks like, you've seen a plane flying, so you know what that looks like, so your imagination can do the rest. But it always has to be based on nothing that, even if you dream, as bizarre as a dream is, it's always based on something that we already have a relationship with in this 3D world that we live in. Now, the idea that a God would expect us to have a relationship with him that has nothing in common with us, we can't even see, we can't even what's that big word, substantiate, you don't find that odd. You might say, yeah, well, we can't see oxygen, but we know it exists. True, but at the end of the day, we know that if we take away that oxygen just for a few minutes, it's lights out, basically. So we know what would be the impact if we don't have it. But if I turn around and say to you, what would be the impact of your life if God isn't in your life? Many people just laugh it off because it doesn't have a tangible, concrete foundation that you can relate that to. Now, look at the example of electricity. We don't know it, we can't see it, we don't know it exists, but the moment you house that in copper wire and attach that to a light bulb, the light comes on. And while that light is in that light bulb and electricity is running through, we're aware that there's electricity. Now, if you smash that light bulb by accident, it don't mean that the electricity all of a sudden disappears. It just means that we can't see it because it's not housed in anything, but it's still there. Now, what I'm trying to offer up is, could it be that the creator of all things, God, Jah, Allah, Yahweh, whatever word we use, has always needed a vessel from which to manifest his greatness, without which we'd have no idea. Even the great ones like Jesus and Moses and Muhammad, those qualities, if it wasn't for people like that, we wouldn't even have an idea of that God exists, because it took them to display them characteristics of a God for us to even fathom the idea that there's something sort of magnificent. But it had to be in a human being. Without a human being, there is absolutely no way that we can come to a conclusion that God lives, that there's a God. Yeah, you can look at mountains in the sky, but the human being is the most personal example of a greater power, because it has so much in common with us. And it's not to say that God is dependent on human beings for existence, but what it does mean is that but it's like a symbiotic relationship. You can't have one without the other. When you're looking at Jesus displaying all them great godly qualities, in that instance, you can't separate Jesus from God. In the same way, when you marvel at people who do great achievements, he obviously isn't man, because otherwise every man would be able to do it. It's something far greater than the average person. Um, but here's the kicker. When that person dies and leaves, what were we looking at all along? It certainly wasn't the person, because that's gone to the earth. What was we looking at all along? That just happened to be housed in the flesh. That and be the dread, yeah man.